Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learn English podcast.
How to speak without pausing. Learn English through podcast.
When you want to learn how to speak English without pausing, especially as a young person who dreams of being fluent, confident, and natural, you have to understand that speaking without stopping too much is not about being perfect. It is about building flow, rhythm, and confidence in your communication, because many young learners hesitate, pause, and stop in the middle of their sentences, not because they don't know the words, but because they are afraid of making mistakes, or they are thinking too much about grammar. And the secret to speaking without pausing is to train your brain to think in English directly, and to give yourself permission to keep going even if your words are not perfect. And the more you practice this, the more your sentences will come out smoothly. Because speaking is like water. If you block the flow, the stream gets weaker. But if you let it run, even if it is not clear at first, it becomes stronger and smoother over time. So the very first lesson to remember is that fluency grows from practice, not from fear. And pausing too much often comes from fear. So if you want to speak without pausing, you must learn to be brave, to open your mouth, to let the words come, and to understand that mistakes are part of the journey, not something to be ashamed of. And I want you to imagine a child learning their first language. They don't stop and think about grammar rules. They just speak, repeat, copy, and try again until the words feel natural. And you must do the same in English. You must speak more, not less. You must train your tongue and your brain to cooperate. And technology today makes it easier than ever because you can practice with apps, with AI, with online partners, and with yourself, recording your voice and listening back. And every time you push yourself to keep speaking, even when your mind wants to pause, you are training the muscle of fluency. And slowly those pauses will disappear, and you will feel more natural and confident. One powerful method to reduce pausing is shadowing, which means listening to native English speakers, whether in movies, podcasts, or speeches, and repeating their words at the same time, almost like you are their echo. And this method is amazing because it forces your mouth to keep moving, your brain to stay active, and your rhythm to match natural English speech. And at first, it feels difficult, but if you practice 5 to 10 minutes every day, you will notice that your sentences become faster and smoother, and you stop overthinking. And this is important because pausing often comes from overthinking, when your brain is trying to translate from your first language into English. And shadowing kills that habit. It teaches you to think and speak directly in English without waiting. And another method is to use filler words instead of silent pauses, because native speakers also pause, but they don't stay silent. They use words like, well, actually, I mean, or so, and these fillers give you time to think while keeping the conversation alive. And if you learn to use them naturally, people won't even notice that you are taking time. They will just feel you are speaking smoothly. And this is a trick that young learners should practice, because silence makes you nervous, but fillers make you sound fluent even when you are searching for the next word. And the more you practice this, the more your confidence grows, because you realize that fluency is not about speed. It is about flow. And flow can be built step by step. Another key idea is vocabulary preparation, because many young people pause because they don't have enough words ready in their mind. And when you don't know the right word, your brain stops. But if you prepare vocabulary for your favorite topics, if you practice speaking about your hobbies, your school, your friends, your dreams, your favorite movies, your favorite music, then you will already have words ready. And when you talk about these things, you won't pause because the words will come faster. And that is why young learners should create personal vocabulary lists for topics they enjoy and review them often, and then practice speaking about those topics again and again until the words feel automatic. And this will reduce pausing naturally because your brain doesn't need to search anymore. The words are already there, waiting to be used. And the more you expand your vocabulary, the fewer pauses you will have, because fluency is really about having enough words to keep the conversation moving. And we must also talk about confidence, because the number one reason young learners pause is not grammar, not vocabulary, but lack of confidence. They worry too much about sounding wrong, about being judged, about being laughed at. But let me tell you, nobody becomes fluent by staying silent. Nobody becomes confident by hiding. And if you want to speak English without pausing, you must practice speaking every day, even if it is just with yourself, even if it is just 5 minutes in front of a mirror, because the more you hear your own voice in English, the more normal it feels, and the less nervous you become. And if you want extra power, record yourself and listen back, not to criticize, but to celebrate, because you will realize that you are better than you think. And every time you record, you will notice small improvements. And these small improvements build confidence, and confidence builds fluency, and fluency removes pausing. So the real formula is simple. Practice plus confidence equals flow, and flow equals speaking without pausing. And the only thing standing between you and that flow is fear. And once you let go of fear, you will see that speaking without pausing is not impossible. It is natural. It is something your brain can do if you give it the chance. And another important way to reduce pausing when speaking English is to practice thinking in English, because many young learners pause because they cannot speak, but because they are translating every sentence in their mind from their native language into English. And this process creates long pauses, breaks the rhythm, and makes you feel slow. But if you train yourself to think directly in English, the sentences will come out faster because your brain does not need to translate. It only needs to express. And you can start training this skill in small steps. For example, when you wake up in the morning, describe what you are doing in English in your head. I am brushing my teeth. I am putting on my shoes. I am walking to school. And these small thoughts in English will slowly program your brain to use English naturally. And as you continue, you can make it more advanced, like planning your day in English, telling yourself your goals in English, or even arguing with yourself in English. And the more you think in English, the more natural your speaking becomes. Because when you finally talk to another person, your brain is already ready, and there is no need for long pauses, because the words are already formed inside you, waiting to come out. And another method that works especially well for young learners is timed speaking practice. Because sometimes you pause simply because you are not used to speaking continuously for a long time, and your mouth gets tired, your brain gets tired, and you stop. But if you train like an athlete, by giving yourself small challenges, you can build endurance. For example, set a timer for 1 minute and speak about any topic without stopping until the timer ends. And at first, you may pause a lot, but the goal is not perfection. The goal is to keep pushing through. And then increase the time to 2 minutes, then 3, then 5. And you will see that your ability to keep speaking grows quickly. And soon, speaking for 5 or 10 minutes without pausing will feel natural. And as you become more comfortable with these timed challenges, you can also practice without a timer, but instead focus on making your sentences longer and fluent, and challenge yourself to connect ideas without taking long breaks. And every time you do this, you are building that muscle of fluency, and it will become easier.
Normal. And this builds huge confidence because you realize that your mouth and your brain can handle continuous speech. And this method is especially good for young people because it feels like a game, a personal challenge. And if you practice this daily, your fluency will grow faster than you expect because your body and mind adapt to the challenge. And every day, you will be able to speak longer and smoother. And don't forget the role of listening, because speaking and listening are connected like two sides of the same coin. And if you want to speak without pausing, you need to train your ears to understand the flow of natural English. Because when you hear how native speakers connect words, reduce sounds, and use rhythm, your brain starts to copy it automatically. And one of the best ways to do this is to listen actively, not just casually, which means when you listen to a podcast, a movie, or a speech, don't just let it play in the background, but focus, repeat the sentences, copy the rhythm, and try to understand not only the words, but also the flow, the speed, the intonation. And this deep listening will give your speaking a natural flow, because your brain will remember the patterns, and when you speak, it will copy what you have heard, and you will pause less because your mind already knows what fluent English should sound like, and it will guide your mouth to follow the same path. Now let's talk about fear of mistakes, because this is one of the biggest reasons young learners pause, and you must understand this clearly. No one in the world speaks perfectly all the time. Even native speakers pause, forget words, or change their sentences halfway. So if they are not perfect, why should you expect perfection? The truth is that pausing too much often comes from waiting for the perfect word. But fluency is not about perfection, it is about communication. So instead of stopping when you don't know a word, learn to explain it another way. Use simpler vocabulary, describe what you mean, or even use gestures. And this ability is called circumlocution, which means finding another path to express your idea. And once you master this, you will never need to pause in silence, because you will always have a way to continue speaking. And this is exactly how fluent speakers handle difficult situations. They don't freeze, they improvise. And this is a skill you can build with practice. For example, if you don't know the word microwave, you can say, "the machine that makes food hot very fast." And people will understand, and the conversation will continue. And with time, you will learn the exact word, but you never needed to pause. And this is how true fluency works. It is not about knowing every word, it is about keeping the conversation alive without silence. Technology can also help you remove pauses, because today you can use apps and AI tools to practice unlimited conversations. And every time you practice, you are building automaticity, which means your brain responds faster without thinking too much. And apps like Elsa Speak, Speechling, or even practicing with ChatGPT can give you instant feedback, correct your pronunciation, and suggest better expressions. And this practice removes the habit of pausing because you are constantly speaking, constantly being corrected, and constantly improving. And if you take this seriously, it is like having a private speaking coach available 24 hours a day. And for young learners, this is an incredible advantage because you can practice as much as you want without feeling shy or embarrassed. And this freedom to practice builds fluency faster than traditional methods. And if you combine technology with real conversations, your progress will be unstoppable because you will have both practice and real-life experience. And soon you will notice that pausing becomes rare because your brain and mouth have been trained to keep going. We must also talk about the importance of breathing and relaxation, because sometimes young learners pause not because of lack of words, but because they're nervous, their body is tense, and they forget to breathe. And this creates unnatural breaks in their speech. But if you learn to breathe calmly, to relax your shoulders, to speak slowly and clearly, you will find that your sentences flow better and the pauses disappear. And this is why public speakers always practice breathing, because breath gives power to the voice and control to the mind. And if you are calm, your speech will be smooth. But if you are tense, your speech will be broken. So as a young learner, practice simple breathing exercises before speaking. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly, and remind yourself that speaking is not a race. It is about flow. And the more relaxed you are, the fewer pauses you will make. And one more secret, practice storytelling. Because when you tell a story, your brain is focused on the message, not the grammar. And this focus on meaning creates natural flow. And if you practice telling stories every day, whether they are real stories from your life or imaginary stories you create, you will notice that your speaking becomes smoother because your brain is too busy delivering the story to pause too much. And storytelling also trains your ability to connect sentences, to use transitions like then, after that, because, so. And these small connectors are powerful tools to reduce pausing because they help you link ideas together smoothly. And the more you use them, the less likely you are to stop in silence because you always know what comes next. And storytelling is also fun, which makes practice easier for young learners. And if you combine storytelling with recording yourself, you will have a clear view of your progress, and you will see how over time your stories become smoother, longer, and more confident, until speaking without pausing feels natural.